So it isn't any secret there is a massive hole in the FPS scene right now. A void, a chasm, if you will, left open by the painful absence of a decent Battlefield title. And if you haven't felt it already, you will certainly feel it even more going forward, considering that Battlefield isn't releasing a game for quite a long time. This is a big problem. The FPS scene needs Battlefield. Battlefield is quite literally one of the most important games out there when it comes to a variety of games being available. Call of Duty being the same thing every single year. All of these hero shooters being copies of each other are simply not cutting it, and this emphasizes the pain of there not being a decent Battlefield game. So, this is my open letter to the developers of the next Battlefield game. In fact, the things I will be sharing with you in this video, I have confirmation personally from the new Battlefield community manager that this has been shared internally to the developers already. So I figured, well, why don't I just share it publicly? If you have any feedback or thoughts about the next Battlefield title, definitely leave them in the comment section down below. And if you enjoy the content, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. I also stream every single day at twitch.tv/enders and this very YouTube channel, so be sure to turn on those notifications so you can be notified when I go live. A little backstory first. A while back, EA welcomed in a new global director of influencer management for Battlefield. Yeah, that's a mouthful of a title. But his name is Mitchell Inkrot, and he was formerly with 2K and Eisenberg, and he genuinely seems to care about the Battlefield community, and he is responding to basically everybody's messages, which is unheard of for EA, particularly them responding to me. During my discussions with Mitchell, it became abundantly clear that he is actively interested in receiving feedback, so that is exactly what I did. I started out by just sort of setting the stage into saying to him that Battlefield is really in a very interesting position right now. They do not need to overthink the next Battlefield game. I genuinely believe that they have an easy path to a decent release. No matter the negativity surrounding Battlefield right now, no matter the naysayers about EA and DICE, no matter how valid those concerns are, the path to the next Battlefield game is simple. In my opinion, that is objectively true. All they need to do is understand at a base level how to proceed down that path. And in my mind, it's very clear how to start proceeding down that path. You have to return to what worked. You have to have a server browser. You have to return to only 64-player matches. You have to keep the setting modern. Something like Cold War, Gulf War, Battlefield Bad Company 3, Made Up War. It doesn't matter. You have a lot of low-hanging fruit for easy game settings that will not only be beneficial to the future of the franchise, but will satisfy what people truly want from a Battlefield game, which is a properly executed modern experience. If you can satisfy that, you're already over halfway there. On top of that, they have an incredibly easy time avoiding what people don't want to see in the next Battlefield game, which is, of course, things like specialists. Replace the operator or specialist idea with the nameless infantry grunt idea and a class system that was in previous Battlefield games. Keep the microtransactions in the game, but reel in the ridiculous skins. You can absolutely have a bunch of awesome skins that will satisfy people's taste for keeping the game's theme intact. Battlefield 5 got a lot of flack for having these maids running around in like little outfits. People really didn't like that. So guess what? Just don't do it. It's very easily avoidable. You cannot risk a poor first impression. And this is what I emphasized to the influencer manager. You have to make sure the first impression of this game is significantly better than the previous two titles, Battlefield 2042 and Battlefield 5. And this time around, it's very different. You have already made your community extremely angry with the first impressions of Battlefield 5 and Battlefield 2042. The games were a little different in terms of how they made people angry, but very similar in what happened afterward. The games lost a lot of interest and it damaged the game's reputation. So how do you make sure that the next Battlefield game has a great first impression? Well, they have to focus on quality and execution. They have to make sure their priorities are in the right place. Again, a perfect example of this, as I told Mitchell, tornadoes were a wrong priority. You cannot focus on having dynamic weather systems that create tornadoes if specialists and the maps of Battlefield 2042 are the way they are. You have to focus on the correct things. And some of those correct things include the feeling of the game, the setting, the art style, the atmosphere, the immersion, the sound design, footstep audio. How is that? How are the mechanics of the game? How's the gunplay? How is suppression in the game? Is it not in the game? How does the gunplay work? What sort of mechanics are in place? Is there a spread system or is there a new gunplay system? How high is the recoil? How quality does everything feel? Does everything feel buttoned down? And I could go on and on and on. You guys really understand the point here. As games get bigger and bigger, and the stakes of releasing these games get higher and higher, people just tend to care less and less. If your game has a bad first impression, people are just simply not going to play it. That's the reality of the situation nowadays. And I think that is even more true because the patience of the Battlefield community is at an all-time low, and I would even argue non-existent for some people. People are simply fed up. And the way to regain at least some sort of trust back from your community is you have to show them that you seriously put an effort into making sure you delivered quality from day one. And yeah, some of you are probably listening to this and going, well, yeah, this is self-explanatory. This isn't even feedback. But this is feedback. It really is. They need to hear this stuff. They really do. Because evidently it wasn't clear enough with the previous titles. As for more specific aspects of the game, I did touch heavily on gunplay and movement. And obviously, a lot of people are going to disagree with me in this section, but I do have a lot of experience at the highest level of gameplay in Battlefield over really all of the recent Battlefield games. And I do think that I have a very good feel as to what feels good and what doesn't feel good in a Battlefield game. However, I'm not stating that my opinion is the only opinion. Okay, I'm fully aware of that. I did mention that the gunplay should be a slightly improved version of Battlefield 4's gunplay, meaning in order to improve Battlefield 4's gunplay, you have to adjust the spread increase per shot so you can get away with full autoing a little bit more, but you still have to burst fire in order to reset your accuracy. Spread is an essential part of Battlefield gunplay, and we saw the effects of having no spread in Battlefield gunplay with the early version of Battlefield 2042's gunplay that would allow people to fully auto kill people out to 150, even 200 meters with, let's say, the LCMG. That was a disastrous balancing situation that was obviously not present in previous Battlefield games because they had mechanics in place specifically in order to prevent that. So to give you guys a TLDR, imagine Battlefield 4's gunplay with no suppression and very slightly more accurate in full auto. Maybe about 5 to about 15% max more accurate, and I genuinely think that would feel really good. In terms of movement, I did tell them that they should feature a lot of things from previous Battlefield games. For instance, a lot of people want Battlefield 5's crouch running back. A lot of people want Battlefield 5's slide back. But simultaneously, a lot of people don't want sliding. A lot of people don't want the ability to jump and shoot. So the topic of movement is really complex. Who do you listen to? What side of the community are you on? Because regardless of what they decide to do, they're going to make some people unhappy. So I really think they need to take a look at how the past 5 or 6 Battlefield games did movement, and they need to mishmash a bunch of things together. In general, yeah, the game is going to play very similar to like Battlefield 3, Battlefield 4, probably Battlefield 5 in a lot of aspects. That is fine. But in terms of specific mechanics, they should keep BF5 crouch running. They should keep BF5 slide. They should keep the ability to jump and shoot and also jump peek. That has been in Battlefield for over a decade at this point, and if you don't like it, I'm sorry, it is here to stay. However, I believe they can have a lot of these movement mechanics and simultaneously achieve the quote-unquote more grounded feeling that people desire with Battlefield. For instance, Battlefield 3, I really don't see a lot of people complaining about Battlefield 3's movement, and you could jump peek in Battlefield 3. So right then and there, you have a reference to go off of. Realistically, all they have to do is update a previous Battlefield game's movement system, include some previous mechanics, and I really think it's that simple. You have a good base to work off of. For content and maps, I bounced the idea off of the Influencer Manager that I think it'd be really cool if they reintroduced some classic maps that people talk about all the time, very similar to how Call of Duty reuses Nuketown all the time, but not as egregious as Call of Duty reusing Nuketown in every single game. For instance, you could bring back maps like Operation Lockers. You could bring back Grand Bazaar or perhaps Achibaba, but these would just be additional maps that you could bring back in order to make sure you at least have some incredibly solid fan favorites available in the game. Obviously, the majority of content should be brand new and not renewed. However, I do think in this particular time period, there is something to be said about making sure the available content for this next Battlefield game is solid from the get-go. And let's face it, guys, revisiting some classic maps is a great way to guarantee that some of the content is solid. And on top of that, great marketing opportunities, right? Like, there are just so many upsides to this, but they have to make sure if they do go through with it that they don't overdo it. I think bringing back a few great maps would be healthy if they kept it to about 3 or 4 total, with everything else being brand new. And in terms of the amount of content, there should be at bare minimum 3 new maps in every content drop, at least 4, 5, 6 weapons, and new battle pass, whatever else have you. You need to meet modern content standards for this game. And I will wrap this video up by stating the obvious, ladies and gentlemen. This is the very last thing that I told Mitchell. I said, I could go on forever, but the main point is all I ever hear from my community every day is that they want Battlefield 4.5 or Battlefield 3.5. It really is that easy. Obviously, it's not easy in practice because they have to make it, but the blueprint is there for them to reference and add to. And that is really it. The hole that is left by Battlefield not being relevant right now is really noticeable. I think it hurts the FPS scene as a whole. Battlefield is really just one of those staple games that has always been there, but has been absent in recent years. And we really need a solid game release in order to help remedy that. So the solution is lock in, and let's see what happens. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate you guys. If you enjoy the content, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, follow my Twitch and YouTube streams, and of course, join the new Metafy group. It is like my Patreon for behind-the-scenes content and a bunch of other bloopers. First link in the description for that. You can also join for free, so if you just want to read all the comments that I post there, you can do that. Thank you for watching. Be sure to leave a comment, and I'll see you guys in the next one.